Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are undertaking a kind of combined culinary and linguistic mission. It goes far beyond just the basics of ordering a meal. Our deep dive is dedicated entirely to the art of sophisticated restaurant English. Our goal is to provide you with a complete dual-level guide to communication in, English-speaking dining environments. We want to move you from basic necessity to really total social mastery.
Exactly, because our sources today, they really reveal that restaurant communication operates on two totally distinct tiers. We're not just looking at language as a means to an end, getting fed.
Right.
We are treating it as a strategic tool. A tool for controlling the entire dining experience, for shaping the service, and ultimately for projecting a sophisticated persona.
And we've broken this down into two very distinct stages. The first, which we will move through pretty swiftly, is what we're calling the essentials.
The survival guide.
The survival guide, yes. This is the A2 to B1 level, just the necessary transactional words or phrases for, basic functionality. If you just need that toolkit to get in, order, and pay without any anxiety, this is your foundation.
But, and this is the important part, for our discerning listeners, here's where the analysis truly begins. We're going to rapidly transition to the masterclass. This is the C1 to C2 advanced level. And here we'll explore complex, nuanced vocabulary, cultural details, strategic idioms, and really the per excellence social choreography that truly proficient speakers use not just to interact, but to influence and elevate their entire environment.
So what does this all mean for you listening? This deep dive is your shortcut to mastering the full social ritual of dining out. You will move from merely being functionally okay in a restaurant, maybe feeling a bit rushed or uncertain about handling a complex interaction, to becoming a truly discerning and experienced diner, someone who can co-create a perfect evening through the strategic use of language.
A co-creator, not just a consumer.
Exactly. So let's start with a quick tour of level 1, the essentials.
Let's do it.
We're going to treat this section as a rapid-fire review. So this is the functional baseline we are moving beyond. So let's start with arrival and greeting. You walk into the restaurant, and you see that person standing at the podium.
That person is the host or hostess, your first point of contact. And the entire goal of this initial interaction is just efficiency and politeness. Nothing more.
Okay.
You walk up, you make eye contact, and before you even speak, you offer a warm, friendly smile. That smile is, well, it's the nonverbal precursor to all good service. It costs nothing.
And then, once you open your mouth, you need the phrase that does all the work in the fewest number of words. The most essential structure is giving the destination, the number, and that polite word.
Which is the magic phrase, a table for two, please.
It's so effective because it's unambiguous. There's no room for error there.
None. And if there are 4 of you, it just becomes, a table for 4, please.
If you're dining alone.
A table for 1, please. This is the universal key to entering the dining room. It works everywhere.
So after you state your request, the next common step is the reservation question.
Right. The host needs to know if you made a booking or reservation by calling ahead. So the question is almost always, do you have a reservation?
And your response needs to be equally efficient. If you called ahead, the key phrase is what?
Yes, I do. It's under the name.
And that phrase, it's under the name.
Yeah.
That's crucial, right? It helps them find your entry in their system really quickly.
Super efficient. But if you did not call ahead, the simple functional response is just, no, we don't. Now, if the restaurant is busy, the host will likely warn you that there will be a wait. You need to recognize that term. They'll say, there will be a short wait of about 20 minutes.
And this is your decision point, your moment to choose. If you accept, you say, okay, we will wait. Or if you need to leave gracefully, it's just, thank you anyway, goodbye.
And that's it. Arrival dealt with. Simple.
Okay, so once we're seated, we move immediately to ordering food and drink. The waiter approaches, and you need a polite structure for making any request.
We call this the golden phrase.
And the functional structure is, I would like, or its incredibly common contraction.
I'd like, which you hear everywhere.
It works for everything on the menu.
Everything. For drinks, I'd like some still water, please, or I'd like a glass of the house red, please.
And for the main course.
I'd like the chicken with rice, please. It's simple, it's clear, and it maintains politeness with that final please.
There is an alternative, though, which is also perfectly acceptable.
Yes. Can I have, also polite, also very common, can I have the soup of the day, please?
The key takeaway here from the essentials is that you don't need complex grammar or a huge vocabulary.
No. You just need 1 or 2 key phrases repeated clearly and politely.
Okay, finally, we navigate payment. The plates are cleared, you've had your coffee, you need to ask for the account of what you owe.
And remember the terminology tip here.
Right. If you are in the UK, you ask for the bill.
And if you are in the US,
You ask for the check. They mean the exact same thing.
so to ask for it, you get the waiter's attention and state simply, "The bill, please," or "The check, please."
Or the full, polite question. Excuse me, can we have the bill, please?
Payment is made, and the final functional step is just a graceful exit.
A quick, sincere, thank you, that was lovely, or everything was delicious, followed by a simple goodbye.
And boom, you have successfully navigated the entire transaction.
That is the foundation.
Functional success achieved. But, as you can probably already tell, that level of communication lacks any capacity for influence.
Or customization.
Exactly. Or for truly sophisticated social interaction.
Which is why we now pivot entirely. We are transitioning from functional English to strategic English.
I like that. Strategic English.
If level 1 was about getting what you need, level 2, the masterclass, is about co-creating a perfect experience and demonstrating your status as a knowledgeable, discerning diner.
The shift from A2 to C2 is, well, it's fundamentally about intent. The beginner asks for a table. The advanced speaker uses language to subtly dictate the terms of the evening, ensuring comfort and, hopefully, preferential service.
And it all begins before you even arrive with the strategic reservation call. When we're looking at the A2 level, the phrase was, "I want to book a table." But for the C1 speaker, language has to be softer, less demanding. So how do we achieve that tone of a sophisticated request?
We move away from definitive kind of transactional verbs like want and into more speculative, softer phrasing. You might initiate the conversation with an opener like, "I was hoping to book a table for 2 for this Friday evening."
I was hoping.
Or, "I'm calling to inquire about the possibility of a reservation."
I love the difference between I want and I was hoping to. Hoping instantly conveys politeness, a little humility. It acknowledges that the restaurant might be busy.
It does. It immediately frames the entire exchange as collaborative rather than demanding.
And in this initial request, you can also demonstrate flexibility.
Precisely. If you are aiming for 8.0, you don't state it rigidly. You say, perhaps around 8.0, or we're flexible between 7.0 and 8.15. This signals you understand the logistics of running a busy restaurant, and it sets you apart from the inflexible customer.
Okay, now let's look at specific seating requests. The A2 speaker just accepts whatever table they're given. The C2 speaker designs the environment.
They do. We move beyond simply asking for a table to asking for the specific type of table.
And this is critical.
It is. You are showing you're experienced enough to know the architecture of a good restaurant. You might add, if at all possible, we'd appreciate a table with a view, or for a more private gathering, could we possibly be seated in a quiet nook?
That vocabulary quiet nook is so evocative. It suggests a small, cozy, out-of-the-way corner. It implies you value privacy over, being seen.
It does. Or asking for a booth, that specific upholstered bench seating. It shows, the venue's layout and have a clear preference for comfort and containment.
And here is the subtle social maneuver that can pay real dividends.
Ah, yes. Signaling a special occasion. You drop this information strategically into the conversation. I should mention, we're celebrating a rather important anniversary this evening.
That is just masterful social chess. You haven't asked for anything, no free dessert, no free champagne, no better table, but you have framed your visit as a moment of significance.
And the restaurant, which is motivated by good public relations and the potential for a larger tip, is now implicitly encouraged to offer a better table or maybe some other complimentary gesture.
It creates a kind of reciprocal obligation without a direct request.
You've earned preferential treatment purely through linguistic strategy.
So now let's move to the moment of arrival. We've made the perfect reservation call. How do we reinforce that sophistication when we arrive at the host's podium?
You use precise professional language. Instead of fumbling around, you state the facts clearly. Good evening. We have a reservation for 2 at 8.0 sharp under the name Vance.
The phrase at 8.0 sharp is a small detail, but it implies punctuality and organization. I like that.
It does. But sometimes, even with a perfect reservation, the table they offer you is suboptimal.
Right. It's next to the kitchen door or right in the main walkway.
This leads us to table negotiation. And the key here is expressing discomfort without sounding like a diva.
Right.
You have to use elevated, less conspicuous vocabulary. If you hate being visible to the entire restaurant, you wouldn't say, I don't want people looking at me.
Right.
You would say, we appreciate the gesture, but we were hoping for a table that is a little less conspicuous.
Conspicuous, easily seen. Requesting less conspicuous seating is such an elegant way to ask for privacy. I also love the approach of framing the request around acoustics.
Yes. If the bar area is loud, you can't just complain about the volume directly. You compliment, and then you request a practical improvement. The general ambiance is wonderful, but would you happen to have a table where the acoustics are a little softer?
And then you give the reason.
It might make it easier for us to converse without straining.
That reframing is essential. You're turning a complaint about noise into a practical need for conversation.
You're asking for a tool to facilitate your social ritual, not just complaining about the environment.
And what if you are seated too close to another couple?
The most sophisticated request is achieved through understatement and a kind of deferral. You request a little more separation because you would hate to impose on our neighbor's conversation.
Oh, the word impose. That elevates the language instantly.
Okay.
You're not being rude. You're being considerate of the imaginary discomfort of the people next to you.
And it's nearly impossible for a host to argue against such a polite, self-effacing request.
This attention to detail extends to the initial interaction with your server.
Yes, the C2 speaker does not treat the server as an anonymous functionary. They view them as a key participant in the evening's performance.
So the server approaches. Welcome. My name is Daniel, and I'll be looking after your table tonight. How does the C2 speaker initiate that personal connection?
You use the server's name immediately and appropriately. Daniel, thank you very much for looking after us. We'd appreciate a bottle of sparkling water to start.
Yeah.
The instantaneous use of the name transforms the interaction from a simple transaction into a personalized, respectful exchange.
You're listening, and you're acknowledging their personal role.
Exactly. And this subtle acknowledgement significantly impacts the attentiveness and quality of service you are likely to receive all evening. It's a reciprocal gesture of respect.
And once that rapport is established, you can follow up with a strategic inquiry.
Right, you don't just grab the menu and disappear into it. You ask, Daniel, before we dive into the wine list, could you possibly tell us if there are any seasonal specials this evening that aren't printed on the menu?
That question achieves three things at once.
It does.
It shows you're an engaged and knowledgeable diner. It signals that you value the server's expertise. And it opens up the possibility of accessing unique, often high-quality, unlisted dishes.
It's the language of the insider.
So within just minutes of arriving, you have used sophisticated language to secure the ideal table, establish strong rapport, and inquire about exclusive offerings.
You have proactively controlled the environment and the service dynamic. This is the goal of C2 fluency in a social setting.
We've set the stage, built the rapport, and now the menu arrives. For the advanced speaker, this isn't just a list of dishes. It is an elaborate pitch.
It's a literary work, a piece of high-stakes marketing designed to signal value and justify price.
So we need a linguistic guide to deciphering this document.
Absolutely. The language on modern, high-end menus is chosen with, well, forensic care. These words are triggers, instantly connoting quality, tradition, or rarity. If you understand the triggers, you understand the philosophy of the chef.
Let's start with the adjectives of authenticity and quality. The words that elevate an ingredient beyond its basic type. The first one being artisanal.
Artisanal. It's a very powerful word. When you read artisanal sourdough, it's so much more than just bread. It immediately conjures the image of an artisan, a skilled craftsman. It suggests traditional methods, ingredients handled with care, a slow, non-industrial process.
It's a linguistic assurance that this product is the opposite of mass-produced.
It is. And the power of that word is that it signals an investment in time and technique, which helps you, the diner, justify the higher price point for a simple item like bread.
You're paying for the story, not just the ingredients.
Exactly. Similarly, we see heritage or heirloom. When a tomato is described as heirloom, what does that suggest?
It suggests a pre-industrial variety of the plant.
Right. These are varieties known for deep, complex, and authentic flavor, often at the expense of, shelf stability or uniform appearance.
They are flavor-focused,
Yeah.
implicitly criticizing modern mass-market produce.
And this connects directly to the C2 concept of provenance. This word is pervasive on menus now.
What exactly is it signaling?
Provenance means specific origin. Lamb with provenance from the Orkney Islands. This is a deeply specific signal. It indicates not just geographical origin, but a commitment to transparent sourcing.
So it tells the diner, we know the farmer, we trust their practices, and we're willing to boast about where this ingredient comes from.
Yes. So using provenance strategically signals the restaurant's commitment to quality and, crucially, sustainability. If the restaurant has provenance, the diner can assume a high standard.
And that whole philosophy feeds into the concept of farm to table.
Right, which is a movement, but also a specific descriptor. It's a promise of a very short, transparent supply chain. It tells you the food hasn't traveled halfway across the continent. It's local, seasonal, wholesome, and ethically sourced.
And finally, when we're discussing ingredient gathering, we have the highly fashionable term foraged.
Ah, foraged. Reading foraged wild mushrooms paints a very specific picture.
It means the ingredients weren't farmed.
They were searched for and gathered in the wild. This term implies rarity, seasonality. The chef had to go out and physically find them, and thus it justifies exceptional quality and expense. It speaks to a deep connection to the natural world, often used as an antidote to the perceived sterility of industrial food.
That makes perfect sense. These adjectives and concepts aren't just descriptive. They are marketing tools that elevate the ingredient's cultural status. Now, let's transition to the jargon of modern culinary preparation, which is often derived from French or specialized techniques.
We should start with the confusing one, deconstructed. The term suggests the kind of intellectualism. When a menu promises a deconstructed tiramisu, the chef is making a philosophical statement.
How so? What do they mean by that?
Well, the traditional dish has been taken apart. You might receive the espresso-soaked ladyfingers, the mascarpone cream, and the cocoa powder arranged separately on the plate. The chef is saying, I understand the tradition, but I am elevating it by isolating the key components. It signals an experimental, highly artistic chef who encourages you to experience flavors and textures in isolation before recombining them.
So understanding deconstructed means you know you are ordering an experience, not a familiar comfort food.
Exactly. Then there is the technical precision of sous vide. As you mentioned, it's French for under vacuum.
So why does a C2 speaker need to understand this term?
Because it promises a specific texture and consistency that traditional cooking struggles to match.
Okay, so when meat is sealed in a bag and slow cooked in a temperature-controlled water bath for hours, what is the resulting texture that I'm supposed to expect?
Incredible tenderness and uniformity. If a steak is sous vide, you know the internal temperature is exactly the same from edge to edge, and it will be consistently juicy and tender. It's a hallmark of technical mastery and precision.
Now let's move from nouns and techniques to the specific verbs used on a menu, the active descriptions of how the food was cooked.
We have to move beyond just fried or boiled. Specific verbs are used to communicate the flavor and texture of the crust and the interior. Take pan-seared.
Pan-seared implies speed and high heat. It means the food, often a scallop or a piece of fish, was cooked very quickly in a hot pan. And the result is that desirable Maillard reaction, that deep, delicious brown crust on the outside, while maintaining the interior's moistness and delicate texture.
Then there is blanched. This is almost always associated with vegetables. When a menu says blanched asparagus, it means the chef has quickly dipped the vegetable in boiling water and then immediately in ice water.
And why is that important for the discerning diner to know?
Because it signals a light, fresh style of cooking. The blanching process achieves two things. It maintains the vegetable's crisp, firm texture, or bite, and it locks in that vibrant, bright green or orange color, which signals freshness.
Finally, we often see cured, especially for fish or meats.
Right. Cured is the opposite of cooking with heat.
So cured meats or fish, like cured salmon, they're known for having a unique, delicate, almost melt-in-the-mouth texture that heat would just destroy.
Exactly. If you see cured duck breast, you should immediately anticipate a rich, delicate, almost velvet-like texture.
This extensive lexicon is essential. Understanding these terms allows you to build a precise mental model of the dish's appearance, texture, and flavor profile before you order.
Which enables truly informed culinary choices. It's reading the menu not as a shopper, but as a critic.
It connects vocabulary directly to expectation management.
We've translated the menu. Now we use sophisticated language to finalize the order and critique the result. Our goal in this section is to achieve our desired outcome, whether it's a modification, pacing, or praise, while always projecting grace and respect.
And this begins with the art of strategic inquiry. The skilled diner doesn't order blindly. They ask questions that show engagement. So if the menu says, chef's risotto of the day, you initiate a polite interrogation.
Absolutely. And you start with a compliment. I was especially intrigued by the risotto this evening. Could you elaborate on the main components and flavor profile?
The word intrigued is key there. It's praise for the concept itself.
It is. The waiter then becomes the expert, describing the specific ingredients, maybe wild mushroom and Parmesan. This allows you to drill down into the characteristics that matter to your palate.
A critical follow-up question is required to solidify your knowledge.
Yes, you might ask, that sounds exquisite. Just to confirm, is the preparation very rich or is it lighter on the cream?
By asking about richness, you are demonstrating a sophisticated palate that is managing flavor balance. A basic diner might not even realize they can ask that question, but the advanced diner uses it to confirm the dish aligns with their current taste preference.
Now for the most delicate interaction, modification. The cardinal sin of restaurant dining is being demanding. The C2 speaker avoids this by emphasizing indirectness and acknowledging the imposition.
Okay, let's take the common example of substituting a side dish. Instead of saying, I want the side salad instead of the mashed potatoes, how do we reframe this?
You frame it as a question of feasibility and acknowledge the potential inconvenience. I was wondering, would it be an imposition to substitute the mashed potatoes for a side of the greens?
Oh, the word imposition is the master stroke there.
It is.
It demonstrates that you understand the kitchen may be busy and that you are asking for extra labor. By explicitly acknowledging the potential burden, you soften the request so much that the server almost always agrees happily.
Another superb softener is asking if something would be terribly difficult. Would it be terribly difficult to have the dressing served on the side?
That adverb terribly adds another layer of overly polite deference.
It does. And if you have a personal preference, like an allergy or a dislike for spice, you frame the question around advice based on your own tolerance, not as a criticism of the food. You might say, I'm not very good with high levels of heat. Do you think the chili oil on the pasta would be too spicy for my palate?
You ask the server to collaborate with you, relying on their expertise to guide your choice, rather than stating a limitation aggressively.
This strategic use of language ensures you get exactly what you want while strengthening rather than eroding the rapport with the service staff. And this approach also applies to pacing and control.
Yes, you don't want the kitchen rushing your evening. A basic diner might complain when the main course arrives too quickly. The C2 diner preempts this with polite instruction early on.
So you would tell the waiter, we're in no rush this evening, Daniel, so please do feel free to pace the courses out for us.
That phrase, pace the courses out, is clear professional terminology, but it's delivered with the non-demanding phrase, please do feel free to. It's an elegant command that establishes you as the thoughtful host in control of the rhythm of the meal.
Now we shift to the moment of triumph when the food is excellent. We need the vocabulary of appreciation that projects connoisseurship. We have to move far beyond delicious. Right. For a dish that represents exceptional technical skill and refinement, we use words that acknowledge the effort. The classic top-tier adjective is exquisite.
Exquisite implies beauty, delicacy, and craftsmanship. My compliments to the chef. The presentation was exquisite and the flavor matched.
And if a dish transcends mere technical skill and touches a level of awe-inspiring excellence, you bring out sublime.
That dessert was truly sublime, an experience I won't soon forget.
It signals a spiritual, higher level of excellence.
And finally, framing the dish as an achievement, calling it a triumph.
The difficult balance of sweet and savory in this new dish is an absolute triumph. It positions the chef as a victor in the kitchen.
But the real skill is flavor precision. We need terms that drill down into specific sensory experiences. Let's talk about sharp or tangy flavors, like citrus or vinegar.
For that bright, energetic flavor of citrus zest, we use zesky. The lemon curd had a wonderful zesty finish. But for a more generalized, stimulating sharpness, there's the elegant term piquant.
Piquant is a wonderful C2 word. The dressing had a lovely piquant quality that was necessary to cut through the richness of the bacon.
It suggests a pleasantly sharp, stimulating counter flavor.
Conversely, for deep, strong, and complex flavors, like a rich sauce or a long-cooked stew, the ideal word is robust.
Robust means strong, full-bodied, and layered with flavor. The Cabernet had a very robust profile that stood up perfectly to the venison.
And if the flavor is the opposite, delicate and understated, we use subtle.
And praising subtlety, there's a very subtle hint of cardamom in the sauce. It shows an extremely refined palate. one that notices the small details.
We must also address texture or mouthfeel. If something is smooth, rich, and creamy.
We use velvety. That smooth potato puree has an incredible velvety texture.
And here's a word that often confuses people because it sounds negative, but is actually a positive high-end descriptor.
Unctuous.
Unctuous. It implies richness, oiliness, and luxurious indulgence. When used positively, it describes a rich, viscous sauce that coats the mouth beautifully.
The slow-cooked pork belly was incredibly rich and unctuous. It signals a delicious, high-calorie, indulgent texture.
For the opposite extreme, something incredibly light and delicate.
We use ethereal. Ethereal suggests almost no mass, melting instantly. The meringue was ethereal, it just dissolved instantly in the mouth.
These are the terms of the food critic, demonstrating true linguistic command.
They are, but what happens when things go wrong?
Right. The eloquence of a polite complaint. The central rule here is minimizing aggression and maximizing collaboration. We have to start with a polite opener that signals regret at having to bother the staff.
You never just rush into the problem. You use an introductory softener. I'm so sorry to be a bother, or the classic, excuse me, I hate to have to mention this, but these phrases instantly frame you as a reasonable person.
Crucially, you must use subjective language. You don't state a fact, you state a personal experience. Instead of, this fish is dry,
You say, I'm finding my fish to be a little on the dry side.
I'm finding it to be is a key phrase. It's your perception, which is undeniable.
And the qualifier, a little on the dry side, is also much softer than a full aggressive statement.
And if the temperature is wrong,
You say, I'm afraid my dish seems to have gone a bit cold. I'm afraid, and seems to have gone. They soften the blow and allow the waiter to correct the issue without feeling personally accused.
and if the waiter brings the wrong dish entirely, a clear mistake, we have to frame it diplomatically to save face for the server.
Right, you say. I think there may have been a slight misunderstanding.
That's incredibly clever.
It is. It puts the blame on a vague, ambiguous communication error, not on the server's incompetence. It allows them to fix the issue gracefully.
So a negative situation is transformed into a positive, collaborative, problem-solving exercise.
Exactly.
The dining experience for the C2 speaker is not complete without navigating the specific cultural ritual of the wine list. This is a subtle dance with the sommelier, aiming to achieve a great wine at a comfortable price while projecting knowledge.
And the first step is translating your preference into technical language. You wouldn't just say, I like strong red wine. You discuss its body and its structure.
So for a strong red, you request something full-bodied and robust. That signals a wine high in tannins and alcohol, like a classic Cabernet Sauvignon or a Barolo.
And for a lighter style, you'd ask for a red that is lighter on the palate with soft tannins. This clearly signals a preference for a more delicate style, perhaps a Pinot Noir or a Beaujolais. You're showing you understand the components that define a wine.
The white wine lexicon is equally important. If you want something sharp and refreshing,
You ask for a white that is crisp and zesty with good minerality.
crisp and zesty suggest high acidity, perfect for a Sauvignon Blanc. Minerality suggests those stony, flinty flavors derived from the soil.
Conversely, if you prefer a richer, creamier white, you ask for something with more complexity and a buttery texture. And this is code for a white that has seen oak aging like a classic Chardonnay.
Once you've narrowed down your preferences, you engage the sommelier, and you ask for their thoughts, not just their cheapest or most expensive recommendation.
You initiate a discussion. We're leaning toward the Italian section, which looks fantastic. We're torn between these two Barbarescos. What are your professional thoughts on the 2018 vintage?
So you start with a compliment, you show you've done your homework, and you invite them to share their specialized knowledge.
Precisely.
And now, the most awkward negotiation, price. How does the C2 speaker indicate budget without explicitly discussing money, which can feel, a bit gauche?
You use the discrete price signal. It's a universal technique. You point to a bottle on the list that falls squarely within your price comfort zone, say a $75 bottle, and you ask the sommelier a question about it.
Could you tell us a bit more about the history of this particular producer?
Exactly. The moment you point to that wine, you have non-verbally set the price ceiling. A good sommelier understands this immediately, and they will then recommend 3 other wines that are close to that $75 mark, ensuring your social status remains intact and you don't feel pressured into overspending.
So the wine is selected, and it is presented for the tasting ritual. We must remind everyone of its sole purpose.
Right. The purpose is not whether you like the wine's flavor profile. It is a technical check.
You are checking for faults, specifically if the wine is corked.
And corked wine smells unpleasant like wet cardboard or a damp, musty basement. You swirl, you sniff, and you taste. If it's fine, the only appropriate C2 response is a simple nod and a minimal phrase.
That's perfectly lovely, thank you, or perfect, please pour.
A lengthy discussion of tasting notes is just inappropriate at this stage.
This entire ritual is a test of cultural fluency. Mastering it signals confidence and respect for the traditional process.
We move to the final act, the payment dance and final nuances. First, signaling that the meal is finished.
A skilled waiter is trained to look for subtle nonverbal cues. These include placing your napkin loosely on the table, closing the menu, or making and holding eye contact with a slight nod when they look your way.
When you do ask verbally, move beyond to bill, please. A more elegant request is, whenever you have a moment, we're ready to settle up.
Settle up is the natural phrasal verb for completing the transaction.
Or even more deferential, could we have the bill when you're ready? This politely requests the bill while acknowledging the server's current responsibilities.
And then there's the payment dance, that ritualistic back and forth when two people offer to pay.
A crucial social exchange. It demonstrates generosity and politeness. Person A says, let me get this. Person B, by cultural rule, must protest. Oh, no, you really don't have to do that.
Person A must then insist, using the specific linguistic key, no, I insist. It was entirely my pleasure.
And if person B accepts, they must immediately use the language of reciprocity to balance the social debt.
That is incredibly kind of you. Thank you. You must let me get the next one. This promise of a future repayment is the social currency that completes the transaction successfully.
And if the decision is to share the cost, the language's simple. Shall we split it evenly? Or the well-known idiom?
Shall we go Dutch? Going Dutch means dividing the cost according to individual contribution.
Right. And crucially, we must demonstrate awareness if the consumption was unequal. You show social maturity by preempting resentment. Let's not split it exactly down the middle. I definitely had the more expensive entree and 2 glasses of wine, so I should pay a larger share.
And that subtle honesty is a hallmark of sophisticated socializing.
Finally, tipping terminology. You must decipher the fine print on the bill. If you see service charge included, it means the restaurant has already added the tip, and you are not obligated to add more unless you felt the service was truly exceptional.
The opposite is service is not included. This is a clear, unambiguous signal that a tip is expected, and you must calculate and add it yourself, typically 15 to 20% depending on the country.
The most challenging phrase is, a discretionary service charge of 12.5% has been added. The word discretionary is absolutely critical. It means optional.
So while this charge is usually paid, you have the linguistic right to ask for its removal if the service was terrible, using the eloquent complaint language we discussed earlier.
Understanding the precise difference between included, not included, and discretionary is vital for handling this final economic transaction correctly and confidently.
The final step is making a graceful exit. You never just slip away.
No. As you pass the waiter or the host, you make eye contact, offer a sincere compliment, and complete the social performance on a high note.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was a truly wonderful evening, or everything was absolutely superb. We will certainly be back. This final positive reinforcement ensures that the rapport you spent the entire evening building is solidified.
And with that, we have completed our journey from A2 function to C2 finesse. It powerfully illustrates that for the advanced speaker, language is the primary tool for shaping experiences, navigating complex social negotiations, and expressing a discerning personality.
We moved from the simple transactional phrase to the layered, strategic request for a quiet nook. We became critics, deciphering the marketing and philosophy behind words like foraged, provenance, and sous vide, and we learned to manage the rhythm of the evening, handle errors diplomatically, and praise success with precise vocabulary like unctuous and sublime.
The core lesson here is that the true measure of linguistic mastery isn't merely knowing the right definitions, but knowing the right words for the right context and the right social outcome.
Right.
The difference between the A2 goal, just getting food, and the C2 goal, co-creating a perfect, customized, sophisticated experience that demonstrates the transformative power of strategic language and cultural fluency.
We've drilled down into the language needed to request the most subtle things: a quieter table, a non-rich sauce, a specific tannin structure. We've mastered the subtext of the dining room, And this deep dive should prompt you to analyze the social subtext of every functional conversation you have this week. What other everyday scenarios are you currently navigating functionally that you could transform into an art form using sophisticated strategic language?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the lexicon of refined dining.
Until the next deep dive, take care. Have you ever been there? I mean, you're staring down the barrel of some social event, and you just know you have to talk to someone new. Could be a big industry conference, maybe it's your partner's family dinner, or, even just the person sitting next to you on a long flight.
Right. And the first part is always easy.
Yeah, the easy stuff. You exchange pleasantries, you talk about the weather, the location, all the standard things, and then just, bam, the well runs dry.
That conversational dead end, it is, it's a brutal feeling. It's that heavy, dragging silence where your mind is just screaming.
Oh, completely. You're just desperately trying to find one relevant, interesting sentence, and all you're getting is static.
That dread, that feeling of, I'm not good at this, that is exactly what we're trying to conquer today in this deep dive.
And we have this great stack of source material that treats communication not as some, mystical talent you're born with, but as a skill. A set of skills you can actually learn and stack.
Yeah, and it takes us way beyond just being polite. It gets right into the deep mechanics of social fluency, and this is the key word, charisma.
I think what's so important to get right from the start is that these sources give us a really structured guide. We're not just throwing out tips.
No, not at all. It's a progression. We're moving from that polite exchange of pleasantries to really understanding the high-level psychological tools that build immediate connection and deep rapport.
Okay, so let's unpack that mission for a second. We've sort of defined the trajectory here in two distinct phases, almost like a skill tree in a video game.
That's a great way to put it.
First, we're focusing on what we're calling the foundational toolkit. These are the skills you need to just survive any social setting to make sure that conversational ball never, ever drops.
This is the foundation. It's the conversational equivalent of learning to walk and then jog. You have to have this down before you can do anything else.
Exactly. And then once we've got that, we move into what the material calls the masterclass.
Right. And these are the advanced strategies, the C1, C2 level techniques. This isn't about being polite anymore. It's about being influential.
Influential, okay.
Yeah, these are the tools used by expert communicators, think negotiators, top sales professionals, therapists, people whose jobs depend on rapidly establishing immense trust and credibility.
So the core goal for you, the listener, is pretty ambitious then. It's not just about learning a list of safe questions to ask at a party.
None at all.
It's about learning the deep mechanics, the psychology behind what makes communication work, how to genuinely connect, build that mutual understanding, and I guess ultimately become the most memorable person in the room.
For all the right reasons.
For all the right reasons, yes.
And if you zoom out for a second, mastering conversation, it really means mastering social access and influence.
Yep.
It's the difference between, just trading superficial information, which is easy, and actually creating a shared experience and understanding. That is the hallmark of true fluency. So let's start with the absolute essentials. The tools you need just to survive the silence.
Okay, part one, the essential toolkit. This feels like it's all about pure mechanical fluency.
It is. It's about making sure the engine starts and, crucially, stays idling. You're sitting across from someone new. The first barrier you have to break is just that initial awkwardness.
That's silent.
That silence. And the sources are, they're unequivocal here. The easiest, lowest stakes approach to starting a conversation is by commenting on the immediate present situation.
Okay, so not some clever joke or a really witty observation.
Nope. No pressure. We're looking for an icebreaker, but really just a simple shared point of observation.
And I think the genius of focusing on the present situation is that it totally bypasses the need for anyone to reveal personal information.
Right. Or for the other person to have some kind of specialized knowledge to even understand what you're talking about.
You're just creating a shared environment that, by definition, you are both currently experiencing.
Exactly. Think about how accessible that is. If you're stuck in an elevator, you don't start with, so what are your 5-year career aspirations?
Oh, we don't.
You start with the environment. If you're at a conference, the low-risk opening might just be, wow, that speaker really went long, didn't they?
Or commenting on logistics. I'm so glad they finally opened up the coffee station. Something everyone could agree on.
Perfect. The moment you make a comment like, this restaurant is really nice, isn't it? You're just offering a small, really easy to accept statement.
And the other person can just nod, or they
Yeah.
can expand on it a little. Yeah, I love the lighting in here.
And there you go. You've instantly moved from silence to engagement. That tiny foundation of shared comfort is laid. You've established a very small, agreeable, shared reality.
And that lowers the defenses. It gets the other person ready for maybe a more substantive exchange.
But once that ice is broken, we have to move on to the next mechanical element. And this is the one that if you get it wrong, the whole thing just collapses instantly.
The question type.
Question type.
This feels so foundational, but I think most people, myself included, still make what the sources call the beginner's mistake. And that's relying on closed questions.
Right. A closed question is, simply put, one that you can answer with a single word. Typically, yes or no.
Like the classic example, do you like your job? Or did you travel far today?
No.
Or have you been to this place before?
And if I ask you, have you been here before? And you just reply, no.
That's it. The conversation is officially dead, the momentum is zero, and that awkward burden immediately shifts right back to me to come up with something completely new.
From scratch. And that extra cognitive load is exhausting.
It is.
And what's fascinating about closed questions is the psychological inertia they create. They signal that the asker is just, performing a task. They're checking boxes.
Right, not actually trying to connect.
Exactly. They're low effort for the person asking, but they're so high risk for the conversation itself. If the person gives a one-word answer, it feels like they're being uncooperative.
But they're not. They're just answering the question you ask.
They fulfilled their obligation. That's it.
So the immediate, powerful solution here is the open question.
The conversational rocket fuel.
I like that. They demand a longer response, and they usually start with words like how, what, or why.
The goal, as you said, is you have to design the question so that the other person must give you some kind of narrative material.
You're forcing them to give you something to work with.
Exactly. So instead of the dead end, do you like your job? We transform it. We ask, what do you find most interesting about the industry you work in?
Or even just sticking to the same basic topic, you could ask, how did you get started in that field? They can't just say yes.
Nope. They have to describe a pathway, an emotion, a decision, an event.
Yeah.
They have to provide you with the raw material for your follow-up questions.
Let's take another common one. People always default to, did you have a good vacation?
Closed. The answer is yes, or it was okay.
Right. So we transform that into what?
What was the highlight of your vacation? Or maybe, what's one thing you'd absolutely recommend from that trip?
I think the biggest challenge here, for me anyway, is that when you're nervous, your brain just defaults to the simplest possible question. You're trying to minimize your own output.
That's a great point.
I definitely failed at this recently. I asked a new acquaintance, are you busy this week? And they just said, very.
Ooh, flatline.
Total flatline. I should have asked something like, what's demanding most of your mental energy this week? That invites them to talk about a specific project or a challenge.
And that's a perfect example, because the open question isn't just about getting more words out of them. It's about extracting a topic that has some emotional weight to it.
Ah,
Once they tell you about that demanding project, let's say it's restructuring their department, you now have something real, something to pivot to, something to connect with, something to build rapport on.
but okay, getting that substantive answer, that's only the second step, because once they've given you the material, you have to show that you've actually processed it.
Yes.
If you ask a great open question and then just stare at them blankly, you still failed. This is where active listening comes in.
Right. And active listening at this basic level is just that immediate verbal and nonverbal confirmation that their words have landed and that you're interested in where they're going with it.
The sources talk about simple, short engagement phrases. These are just the quick verbal nods.
Exactly. Really? Wow, that's fascinating. Or even just, I hadn't thought about that. They're so low effort for you, but they are absolutely essential for the listener.
And it's not just words. There are nonverbal cues here too.
Oh, absolutely. They're implicit in active listening, maintaining eye contact, nodding when they make a key point, maybe leaning slightly forward.
All of these are physical signals that confirm, I am focused on you and nothing else right now.
Active listening is fundamentally about immediate validation. When you interrupt their flow for just a microsecond to say, wow, you're signaling that what they just said was noteworthy. You're confirming their role as the interesting storyteller.
It also serves a really practical purpose, which is it buys you a little bit of thinking time.
Critical thinking time, yeah.
While they're absorbing that's fascinating. You have a moment or two to formulate your next open question,
Oh,
or
right.
figure out how what they just said connect to something you want to share.
Now, if we connect all these mechanics, the sources use this really powerful and, I think, relatable analogy. They call it the conversation tennis game.
I love this comparison.
Yeah.
It perfectly captures that rhythm and reciprocity that you need. The conversation is the ball.
Right.
I hit the ball to you by asking an open question. You hit the ball back by giving a good answer and showing you're listening.
And the number one rule in this game, especially when you're just at the survival level, is you cannot let the ball drop.
Right. If you ask a closed question, the ball just disappears over the fence.
If you fail to acknowledge their answer, the ball drops at your feet. And if you only talk about yourself.
You're just hitting the ball against a wall.
Exactly.
But here's a challenge. What happens when the other person doesn't seem to want to play tennis?
That's a great question.
What if I hit the ball perfectly? I ask a really thoughtful, open question, and they just give me a minimal closed answer anyway. Say I ask, what was the highlight of your vacation? And they just say, the food.
Ball out of bounds.
Right. So what do you do?
That's where the master's commitment to the open question really comes in. If they say the food, you don't panic. You don't accept the dead end.
Okay.
You just use that little bit of material they gave you to launch another slightly more specific open question. You gently push them. The food. What was the single best dish you had while you were there?
So you're forcing them to elaborate on the narrow topic they chose. You just keep hitting the ball back until they catch the rhythm.
You don't abandon the open framework just because the first attempt was met with a little resistance.
That makes sense. And assuming the rally is going well, the simplest, clearest, most polite way to keep it going, to shift the focus back to them, is with that simple phrase. And you.
It's the perfect conversational return. It signals reciprocity without having to invent a whole new topic.
It basically says, I heard you, I answered, and now I respectfully give you the floor again. It's the glue that keeps the rally going.
So to summarize this essential toolkit, let's call it the A2B1 survival guide. Break the ice with the present situation, ask open questions, what, how, why, show you're engaged with active listening, really.
And use "and you" to keep that tennis game flowing, even if you have to follow up a short answer with another deeper open question.
With that foundation, you have the mechanics to survive any initial interaction. You've overcome that fear of the silence.
But now we're ready to make a pretty significant shift. We're leaving the world of just exchanging safe information, and we're moving into the psychology of deep connection, of influence.
And I think the critical thing to reflect on before we move on is this. If the foundation is survival, what's the single biggest trap that people carry from these Part 1 skills into advanced conversation?
What is it?
It's relying only on the facts they give you and not the feelings that are implied. We are about to shift our focus entirely from data transfer to emotional synchronization.
Okay. Welcome to the masterclass.
This is where it gets really interesting.
So this shift is crucial because the goal changes completely. We're not just trying to avoid awkwardness anymore. We are now intentionally trying to build rapport.
Rapport is the absolute key focus here, and the definition is vital. It comes from French, and it means a close and harmonious relationship that's characterized by a mutual understanding of feelings or ideas and good communication.
Notice that definition doesn't emphasize data. It emphasizes feelings and understanding.
That's a really deep definition. It means rapport isn't just about liking someone. It's about establishing this kind of emotional synchronization, feeling like you're both operating on the same frequency.
Exactly. And this is where we can address that common critique, that small talk is, superficial or banal.
Right. I hate small talk.
The master understands that small talk is not the destination. It is the essential bridge. You can't skip the small agreements to get to the big ones.
Right. High-level small talk, the kind we're talking about now, is the foundation of that compliance ladder. You build that mutual comfort through these low-stakes agreements before you can ask someone to reveal genuine vulnerability or passion.
So if rapport starts with the very first words you exchange, then we have to tackle the biggest conversational obstacle in the English-speaking world.
Oh, I know this one.
The linguistic reflex loop of "how are you?"
The problem with "how are you" is just its utter meaninglessness. I mean, 90% of the time the response is "I'm fine, thanks," or "good," and "you?"
It's totally robotic.
Yeah.
It's just an auditory signal that communication is happening, but zero connection is being made. It doesn't engage the brain at all.
So we have to disrupt that reflex. And the core strategy here is what the sources call contextual anchors.
Okay, what does that mean?
It requires two things: really keen observation and specific inquiry. You replace that generic greeting with a specific comment based on something observable about the person or the environment at that exact moment.
You're forcing them to stop the autopilot.
Yes. You force them to actually engage with the present reality.
So instead of the totally generic, how are you, which takes zero thought, you anchor your greeting to something specific. You look for a piece of clothing, their demeanor, something they're holding.
Let's break down the power of that observation. Let's say you're meeting someone right after lunch. Instead of, how are you? You could say, you look energized. Did you manage to sneak in a decent lunch break today?
Or if you see them holding a unique bag, that's a striking color on that tote. Are you rushing straight from a meeting?
My favorite example from the sources is, you look like you've had a busy morning. Is that a double espresso?
I love that one because you're not just commenting on the coffee, you're actually formulating a theory about their emotional state, the busy morning.
And that theory is the key. You haven't demanded a deep answer, but you've provided the specific anchor that they have to engage with. If they respond, oh, absolutely, it's been nonstop chaos, you immediately have a real topic.
Chaos of the morning.
You've completely bypassed the I'm fine wall.
And it shows you were paying attention before they even spoke, which is just a massive psychological deposit into the trust account. It says, I see you, not just the social requirement to greet you.
Right. So moving on from the greeting, the next master strategy is maybe the most transformative one in the whole deep dive.
Okay.
It's switching from asking for facts to asking for emotion.
This directly addresses that common social bore. We've all been trapped in that factual conversation. What do you do for work? I'm an insurance adjuster. Where do you work?
At the regional branch. All just data points, dead ends.
The power move here is the emotive question. We're fundamentally shifting the conversational axis by explicitly asking for positive emotion, for passion.
I feel like I default to the resume question every single time, especially when I'm nervous. I asked someone recently about their work, and they just gave me the name of their boring, monolithic company.
Flatline.
Total flatline. And I should have immediately transformed that.
That transformation is profound. So instead of, what do you do for work? We ask,
what are you working on right now that is genuinely exciting you?
Ooh, I like that.
Or, if they're retired, you could ask, what project or activity has captured your passion recently?
That is a fundamental shift in energy. You're not asking for a job title to store in your memory. You're asking them to access the part of their brain that's associated with joy or achievement or aspiration.
And the neuroscience actually backs this up. When you ask someone about what excites them, you are literally inviting them to activate their reward centers and to articulate a positive feeling.
Which dramatically lowers their internal resistance to sharing something.
Of course, because they know what they're about to share is positive and invigorating. You bypass that defensive shield people put up when they have to talk about stress or duty.
It's interesting how that emotive focus changes the whole trajectory. If I ask, what are you working on that excites you? And they say, I'm restructuring the department. That's still a fact.
Right.
But the word excites forces them to elaborate on the feeling of it, the challenge, the creativity, the potential impact, not just the process.
Absolutely. The factual trajectory leads to process description. The emotive trajectory leads to value alignment. When they tell you what excites them, they are telling you what they value.
And understanding someone's values is the fastest way to build rapport.
It's a total shortcut.
Okay, so once we've opened up these floodgates of passionate conversation, the true test of the master begins. How do you maintain that intense focus? How do you communicate that you're locked in without interrupting them or worse, giving advice?
And this brings us to the echo technique, also known as mirroring.
This feels like a truly C2 level skill.
Oh, it is. As the sources note, the echo is standard operating procedure for any high-stakes interaction. Negotiators, high-level coaches, therapists. It's used because of its undeniable psychological power to build immense trust and do it rapidly.
The mechanism is deceptively simple, but the application seems to require a lot of nuance. You take the last few words the person said, especially words that carry emotional weight or tension, and you repeat them back as a question.
Right. And we need to talk about how to apply it strategically. Most beginners will just parrot the last two words they heard, deadlines at the last minute. The master, however, listens for the word that carries the emotional valence.
Okay, so let's use the example. A speaker says they are dealing with this difficult client who keeps changing the deadlines at the last minute. A beginner might just say, last minute.
Right, but the master is listening for the key. The key word here is probably difficult, or the emotional descriptor, so you repeat. A difficult client.
Or, even better, you interpret the implied feeling and you echo that. Incredibly frustrating.
That slight shift from mirroring a fact to mirroring an emotion, that's everything. If you repeat, incredibly frustrating, you're essentially giving them permission to vent. You're saying, I understand that the feeling you have right now is frustration, and I'm here for it.
And that repetition, phrased with an inquisitive tone, it signals complete non-judgmental focus. You haven't added advice, which often just shuts people down.
Instead, you've validated the feeling they shared. And the speaker then naturally feels compelled to go deeper because they realize they have an audience that is not only listening, but is deeply attuned to their experience.
I need to challenge this a little because in the moment, resisting the urge to offer advice, especially about a difficult client, that feels incredibly hard. Our natural instinct is to be a problem solver.
It is. So how do the sources suggest training that resistance?
Yeah.
The training comes from understanding your goal. In the masterclass, your goal is not to solve their problem. Your goal is to build rapport.
Yeah, and advice breaks rapport.
It does, because it implies you know better or that they're incapable of solving it themselves. Echoing builds rapport because it implies, I believe you are capable and I trust you to share more.
So the motto is something like, when in doubt, echo the emotion. Don't offer the solution.
Exactly. Internalize that.
What about overuse? If you just echo every other sentence, surely it becomes mechanical and, frankly, kind of creepy, like you're a parrot, not a person.
You're absolutely right. It crosses the line into parroting when the echo interrupts the flow, or when you're echoing words that have no emotional significance.
You have to be selective.
Very. The echo is most powerful right after a key reveal, a moment of vulnerability, or when the speaker introduces a challenging concept. Use it like a precision tool to confirm that specific important piece of information landed.
The echo technique, then, it fundamentally satisfies this primal human need we all have, the need to feel deeply understood.
That's it. When you echo the feeling, you are proving on the spot that you understood both the facts and the emotional weight of their story.
Now, even the most vibrant conversation is going to have moments where the energy dips, a natural decrease. The master has to be comfortable with the lull.
Oh, this is the moment that separates the master from the novice. A beginner panics. They glance at their phone, they awkwardly blurt out some unrelated subject.
While the master understands that a lull isn't a failure, it's just a reflective pause.
That comfort with silence is a true C1 skill, and it's so often overlooked. You don't have to fill every single second with noise, sometimes a brief pause, 3, maybe 4 seconds. It allows the other person to gather their thoughts.
Or to reveal something deeper they were maybe hesitant to share right away, so you embrace the pause as reflective time.
But when you do need to move on, you need a strategic move. You need the pivot. This is the ultimate tool for a smooth topic transition. It's a phrase designed to connect two topics that are otherwise unrelated.
But to do it with grace and logic, so you preserve that feeling of continuity.
Right. The functional pivots act as a kind of conversational glue. If the conversation about their busy week has run its course, you don't just jump to travel plans, you bridge it.
You use phrases like, speaking of, or that reminds me of a story.
Let's expand on that. If we've been talking about the pressure of their job, a smooth transition might be. That level of pressure sounds intense. Speaking of intensity, did you happen to catch the news about that new space launch this morning?
The two topics are unrelated, but the phrase, speaking of intensity, provides that logical bridge.
Yes. And that phrase signals to the listener's brain, we are changing topics now, but this is a controlled change, not an abrupt ejection. It minimizes the cognitive shock of the transition.
And then there's what the sources call the playful pivot, which creates a bit of suspense and energy.
This is when you want to signal that the next topic is intentional and fun.
When you say, okay, enough about the chaos of Monday.
Yeah.
I have a question that I've been dying to ask you.
You've manufactured this small moment of suspense. You've signaled that the next topic is important and maybe requires a different kind of mental engagement.
And once you've done that playful pivot, the sources identify the perfect high-impact follow-up, a hypothetical question.
Hypothetical questions are defined as conversational gold. And the reason is they succeed precisely where factual questions fail. They completely remove all social pressure.
I think the reason they work so well is that they engage your imagination instead of your memory.
That's a great way to put it.
Memory requires effort, and you have to defend your facts. Imagination is inherently playful and low effort, so it makes sharing something personal much easier.
Precisely. The pressure is gone because the context is overtly fictional. There's no right or wrong answer, so the speaker can safely reveal their values, their fears, their aspirations without that fear of judgment.
So let's run through an example. Instead of asking, do you like living in the city? The closed question, you could pivot and ask,
If money and practicality were completely irrelevant, where in the world would you choose to spend the next 5 years, and why?
and the why is the key.
The why is everything. Their answer reveals their deepest values. Are they seeking community, solitude, nature, intellectual stimulation? If they say they want to be in a remote mountain, you know they value peace and quiet more than the hustle of the city.
And that is a profound connection point.
A huge one. Or to keep it work-related, instead of, do you want to get promoted?
Yeah.
You ask. If you had a completely blank slate and could design a new company division based purely on your strengths, what would that division do?
That question forces them to articulate what they see as their greatest strengths and their real career desires.
Hypotheticals just inject immediate life into a stagnant conversation. They're incredibly flexible. They're the perfect tool to transition between work and life, past and future, without the whole thing feeling like an interrogation.
And finally, the last piece of mastery. And this is so crucial because it colors the entire memory of the interaction. It's how to exit gracefully.
If you've spent all this time building trust and deep rapport, a simple, abrupt, gotta run or goodbye is just disastrous.
It violates that principle of reciprocity you've been building this whole time.
It makes the other person feel abandoned. Or worse, that the last 30 minutes were just a transactional stop on your social calendar.
So the sources strongly recommend the future mentioned technique. It's a simple two-step process that ensures the person feels validated and respected right until the very last word.
Step 1, validate the interaction. You have to complement the conversation, and you have to validate the specific content you discussed.
So no generic pleasantries like, it was nice talking to you. That's weak.
Very weak. You have to be specific. I've loved hearing about your new project, or that insight you shared about the value of quiet time really resonated with me.
By validating the specific content, you're affirming that their time and their contribution mattered. You're proving you were listening right up until the end. That's what makes the interaction memorable.
And then step 2, signal the future. You mention a future interaction, and you provide a gentle, non-apologetic reason for leaving. You're signaling that this connection is just paused, not terminated.
For example, I definitely want to hear more about your mountain ambition next time we connect. I'm going to go grab a coffee before the next session starts, but let's catch up later.
Or if it's a social event. This conversation has been incredible, but I did promise my host I'd help with the cleanup. Let's exchange details, and I'll send you that article we talked about.
The result of a graceful exit is just immense. The other person leaves feeling valued, respected, and holding a positive feeling about you. They're eager for the next encounter because you closed the loop so smoothly.
And with that, we have now transitioned you from a conversational survivor to a master, covering everything from the basic mechanics of asking questions to the deep psychology of maintaining focus and building trust.
Okay, let's bring it all back home. We have covered a massive amount of ground today, from those A2 survival skills all the way up to C2 mastery. Let's quickly recap the 4 key masterclass strategies that will fundamentally change how you interact with people.
First, you have to consciously disrupt the autopilot. Stop using those generic greetings. Instead, use contextual anchors based on intense, specific observation.
And crucially, always ask for positive emotion and passion. Find out what excites them, rather than just demanding the factual data.
Second, practice the Ecker technique with surgical precision. Resist that powerful urge to give advice. Instead, repeat the key emotional words the speaker uses back to them as a question.
It is the fastest way to build immense, rapid trust, by proving you understand their feelings, not just their facts.
Third, master the pivot and the pause. Don't panic during a silence. Allow for those reflective lulls. Use smooth transition phrases like "speaking of" to gracefully change topics.
And when the energy dips, use those hypothetical questions to inject some playfulness and allow the other person to safely reveal their aspirations and their values.
And finally, always, always employ the graceful exit. Before you leave, validate the specific content of the conversation, complement the topic you discussed, and then signal a future interaction to make sure the connection feels paused, respected, and not abruptly terminated.
At its heart, conversation is, it's really an art form. It's a dance between two focused reciprocal people. You now have the full toolkit, from the foundational steps to the elaborate movements, to not just survive that dance, but to confidently lead it with grace and depth.
You have the mechanics, you have the psychological strategies, and you have the ability to build deep rapport. But as you go out there and you start practicing these skills, we want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over.
When you are actively listening to someone answer one of your open questions, and you're hunting for that perfect word to echo, how often do you truly listen only for the emotional valence, the tone, the enthusiasm, the stress, before you even begin to process the information they're relaying?
That subtle shift, prioritizing their underlying feeling over the facts they're conveying, that may just be the most powerful connection tool you own.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into conversational mastery. We hope you feel far more confident, not just in your ability to speak, but in your ability to genuinely connect and influence the world around you.
Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep growing. Until next time.